Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'm BZ. He's back. It is Tuesday, I should say, September the 17th, the year of our Lord, 2024. And I am broadcasting from an actual free state instead of behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spelled with a K. Please note that what you're about to hear for the next hour, whatever, because it's my show, consists of my opinion and my opinion only, and of course those of my guests. And I have got a great returning guest for tonight. So I am inviting you cordially into the Saloon, where you should be able to relax and converse, and where we're still serving stiff drinks and facts and history and logic and rationality and proportion and context and tradition, intent, common sense, strange things like that. Plus, remember, we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. We talk about it all right here at the Saloon. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. Everything is discussed here, where the speech is free, but the booze is not. And tonight we're going to have a returning guest. I don't customarily get into local politics, and I have not been super forthcoming with where I moved after I left California, home spelled with a K. But I'm in North Idaho, in a place called Kootenai County. And we're going to be talking to an individual that I spoke to last August 15th, if I'm not mistaken. And again, just like last time, this is a local kind of discussion we're having tonight. So I need to, well, let me just continue. So this show is a continuation of the August 15th, last month conversation with Dan Wilson, who is an independent candidate for Kootenai County Sheriff in North Idaho. And he's running against incumbent Sheriff Bob Norris. And I want to emphasize, again, for people just tuning in or who are listening in podcast, I get a number of people listening in podcast, that this show consists of my opinions and those of my guests. And I will soon introduce Dan Wilson, who is in the green room right now. By the way, you can jump into our plush, resplendent, sumptuous, and palatial chat room. As you can see, I have new sofas. All the cigarette holes and cigar stains have been taken out. It's a wonderful place to be. Jump into our chat room. And then also, if later on you're interested, I'm going to be opening up the phone lines, and there's the number to call if you're interested and you want to ask myself, or more specifically, Dan Wilson, a question about his candidacy. And I'll be running that again. Anyway, Dan right now is in the green room. He's enjoying a nice Stella's stogie. I'm sure probably a glass of fine whiskey in order to soothe his tortured vocal cords, of the likes of which he's been flaying the heck out of for quite some time, and also for tonight's appearance. Now, I pointed out, just like last time, and I will do that again tonight, that there has to be an understanding of the role of the sheriff and chiefs of police, two very different types of law enforcement heads of office. But just like last time, there's going to be a little bit of a preface, as I indicated, to the show and why it's important to discuss this. So when I'm talking to Dan Wilson as a potential candidate, well, not a potential, he is a candidate for sheriff, it doesn't just apply to me. It applies to anybody and everybody else in your state, in your nation, all around the nation, because elections for sheriff are coming up not only here in my county, but everywhere. Sheriffs are elected. Chiefs of police are appointed. Remember that very distinct difference. Sheriffs answer to the electorate. Chiefs of police answer to the appointing authority. Whether it's a strong mayor, a city council, a city manager, some other form of authority with the lawful license to make those kinds of appointments. In other words, this is the huge distinction. Sheriffs answer to the people. Chiefs of police answer to whomever is that jurisdiction's biggest, most overbearing political animal. It's the truth. So in our prior show, we discussed any number of the current political push in a number of leftist cities and states to just eliminate wholesale the position of sheriff. And don't think that that hasn't been around or isn't anywhere near you. Nowhere was this better illustrated than someone stepping on the neck of your freedoms than what recently occurred during COVID. And so when there was pushback, I'm sure you already recognize that it came from elected sheriffs. And that held true for lockdowns and for policies regarding what I consider to be illegal invaders, rampant crime, the homeless, all sorts of politicized topics. And doing away with the position of sheriff isn't just some kind of a wacky theory. I don't know, 200, 300, 400 miles away from us, going west in King County in 2021, that's not terribly far from here in the state of Washington, they appointed their newest sheriff. The last sheriff to be installed via election was in 2018. So because sheriffs were not responsible to the leftist elements, my opinion, my show, then essentially leftists determined that they had to get rid of sheriffs because otherwise we have to be able to appoint them. If the electorate gets the chance to actually elect somebody that the powers that be don't care for, well, darn them. The other thing that I discovered last time, which is really weird and probably most people don't know, is right in Kootenai County.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I discovered that the people of Kootenai County apparently flirted with an appointed sheriff as recommended by the Board of Commissioners. And it was Kootenai County citizens who voted that crap down. So my point being is that even if you think that you're in this wonderful state of freedom, and you are, and you should be, that's why being a constitutional sheriff is critical to the survival of our public. And first, Truth in Podcasting, I contributed to the campaign of Dan Wilson. I attended a fundraiser for him this past September 7th. And so with that, I'd like to bring on Dan Wilson, not a Republican, not a Democrat, an independent who is a candidate for sheriff of Kootenai County, Idaho. So welcome to you tonight, sir, Dan Wilson. And how goes it with you?
BZ, thank you so much for having me back on. I've been looking forward to this all week. I enjoyed my time in the green room. I just finished a Padron 3000.
Oh, perfect.
A little Irish whiskey tonight, because I wanted to just tap it lightly. And I'm drinking a cup of coffee right now while I'm speaking to you. So I'm excited to be talking about all the things that are liberty without compromise related.
We went, last time we spoke, August 15th, we spoke for over 2 hours, almost 2.5 hours. Yeah. And you delineated your background, your motivations, your reasons for running for sheriff. So tonight I'd like to get into some different topics in some greater detail. And I have a video from current Sheriff Bob Norris's campaign kickoff event. He makes some statements, and what I'd like you to do is respond to them. We'll start out with that. And then there are some other more specific issues to address coming up.
Hey, BZ, I've lost you somehow. I think I just lost the audio. Stand by.
Okay.
Stand by. You might want to put me out of the picture while I fix this real quick.
Okay. In any event, what we're going to be doing tonight is going over some more very specific events and some very specific things with which to address, because I did most of the generic stuff earlier in the first show. And if you want, I would highly recommend that you go see the first show, because I don't think that there has been any podcast or show that's gone into as great an amount of detail as the one that he and I conducted on August 15th. There was a lot of detail in that one. So if you want to see that, let's say at the conclusion of this, you decide that you want to go back, go to his website, theidahosheriff.com, theidahosheriff.com. And I think it's under media, if I'm not mistaken. And you can go down there to podcasts, news and podcasts, I believe is the area. And kind of in that first row, you can find that show. And let me see if you're back. Okay. So I think you're going to have to unmute your mic, sir. And then we can continue because I show that your mic is muted over here. In any event, go see that show. If you're looking for something with a wider range of specifics. Oh, here we go. Now you're unmuted. Outstanding.
Technology, my apologies.
Yeah, well, I'm known quite clearly as a techno-Luddite. But first, Dan Wilson, I referenced the first show. Because I think this is critically important, can you reiterate what the phrase constitutional sheriff means to you? And I believe you take that very personally.
I do. Well, really what it is it's the style of sheriff that was many decades ago, back when sheriffs understood the delineation between the federal government and local government. Nowadays, it's kind of a buzzword, but what it means in practicality is a man that understands our history of this great country, all the way from when the Pilgrims first landed here and the Mayflower Compact, all the way through the history of the early colonists and the French Indian War, when afterwards the Americans decided that they were free men and didn't want to be under the thumb of King George and Parliament, all the way through the Declaration of Independence, the war that we should not have won, but divine providence allowed the Americans to prevail against the greatest, at that time, military force in the world. And then after that, the attempt to fix the Articles of Confederation and deciding that it was not salvageable and that tyranny was starting to creep back in through legislative tyranny in the states, and this forming of the Constitutional Convention.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
And penning that great document, the Constitution of the United States, a representative republic, the first of its kind in history, and the arguments that the founders, both pro and against the Federalists, that ultimately paved the way for the Bill of Rights. And so a constitutional sheriff understands all of these things. He understands their great heritage, and he understands what the intent of the framers were when they wrote those documents, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. There is nobody better equipped to protect the people of his county, as the Supreme Court has ruled, the chief law enforcement officer, historically the sheriff, the best person to stand between an out of control, unaccountable government, federal government, state government, and the county citizenry is the sheriff, who understands what the intent of the framers was.
So, because we're going to get into specifics tonight, is your current opponent, Sheriff Bob Norris, could he be termed a constitutional sheriff? And why or why not, in your opinion?
I would argue and say no. And the reason why is that it's like anything. If you're a professional at one thing, you reference a lot of your background. We all do it, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a contractor, whether you're a cop. And in 4 years, I have never heard Bob Norris ever utter anything about the founders and the Constitution. Now, he may claim something about a Supreme Court ruling when it comes to invaders here in the country, and he erroneously has stated things like Scalia claiming that any invader that comes into the country has all the same constitutional rights as a citizen of the United States. But Bob uses buzzwords. My opponent uses these buzzwords to con people into believing that he's a constitutional sheriff rather than the deep stater that he is. And that is this. Well, I'm pro Second Amendment, and I will never make you wear a mask. And lastly, I won't enforce any red flag laws. And to prove that I'll never enforce a red flag law, I wrote a statement out and then went down to the local Wells Fargo bank and had a notary notarize it, and I put it on my website. And see, right there, that means I'm a constitutional sheriff. And the fact is, that has nothing to do with being a constitutional sheriff. In fact, Sheriff Richard Mack of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, who's known Bob for many years, when he came to Coeur d'Alene back in April to put on a seminar, not only for the general public, but also for elected officials and law enforcement, he at that event endorsed me as the constitutional candidate in this race for sheriff, stating that Bob Norris is not a constitutional sheriff. So who better to hear it directly from the lips of the man himself, the godfather, if you will, of the modern constitutional sheriff's movement.
So Dan Wilson, candidate, independent.
Yeah.
Darn me. Independent candidate for sheriff in Kootenai County. I asked you this before, but other than the constitutional aspect, is there any sort of another major difference between yourself and current Sheriff Bob Norris?
Yeah, I think that Bob Norris is just a typical career law enforcement professional that never matured outside of that box. His only experience comes from within working in a law enforcement agency and a very large and arguably a very corrupt sheriff's office, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, where he put in 30 years. And the last several years, he was working under the Joint Regional Intelligence Center of Homeland Security. So, you know, that's his experience. My experience is I was a reserve police officer for 12 years. I put in all my time, took on the same responsibility, liability, did all the hard work, but I did it for my community for free. I've been a commercial business owner for 25 years. I own 2 commercial construction companies. I have made jobs out of thin air. I have produced budgets from my own treasure, not taxpayer dollars. And as a leader of these organizations that are running very, very well, I have learned how to set the vision for my operations, and I will do the same thing with the county. I will actually lead with what's coming down the road, and I will prepare the people, and I will prepare the sheriff's office to be able to face whatever challenges that we have coming our way. In the past 4 years, Bob Norris has not done anything of any noteworthiness for this community. In fact, if you ask people what has he done in the past 4 years to get us ready for the next time they attempt an end run around the Bill of Rights through another COVID or a cyber attack or a grid down, whatever, nobody knows what the plan is. And after 4 years, that's unacceptable. And that is why I am so vastly different from Bob Norris, because I actually see the danger on the horizon and I'm ready to take it on. I'll have to make up for lost time, but I have a plan and we're going to execute it to get this county secure.
So Dan Wilson, could we, or should we, is this even something in the equation? Should we consider running government, specifically the sheriff's department, in any kind of a similarity to business? I mean, shoot, government operating as a business, aren't there a lot of other things that unseen conditions that factor in, and that it's unpredictable? How can you predict something like that? Should we even consider running government, specifically the Kootenai County Sheriff's Department, kind of sort of like a business?
Yeah, similar, but not the same. Obviously, with business, our motive is to gain wealth, to be able to be a little bit more profitable than we were last time. Whereas government, the first goal should never be to be profitable, because we're providing a service. It's a monopoly. Right. I mean, there is nobody else that can compete for the sheriff's contract, right? For the citizenry. But yes, when it comes to the administrative portion of a sheriff's office, it's very important that you have a model very similar to that of the corporate world, which is policies. Everything has to be driven by policies, and the policies have to be understandable to those that have to adhere to it. It has to be fair. It has to be articulated in a way that makes sense. There has to be training. You have to have resources. Your greatest resource, of course, in any organization is going to be your people. Well, bar none. There is not a inanimate object that compares to a human being that has a skill set. And so we have to take care of those resources. We have to take care of everything from the tools that the deputies need, the buildings, all the basics that we have to have in place in order to do what the sheriff's office is actually mandated and, why they exist, which is to secure the county, to take care of the people. So if you don't have all of your house in order, well, you can't do a good job at taking care of your customers. So it's similar in my business. Those things I just articulated, my men, my staff, our equipment, our buildings, all of that we have to take care of and be financially responsible. But also, if we don't take care of the clients who we exist to take care of, well, then it's a lost cause. So yeah, you need somebody that truly understands what it's like for 25 years to continually be profitable year after year after year in order to stay in business without having to, fall on the back of the taxpayers because we did something wrong with a budget. I don't have that luxury in my business. If I fail, I'm out of business. And the men and the women who work for me, they don't have jobs to take care of their families, and subcontractors and suppliers, all that depend on us providing them work. It's similar in the sheriff's office, but unfortunately, government always has a way out. They can always blame it on somebody else. They can bring in unlimited resources, and especially they can break the back of the taxpayers by continually saying, you know what, we need just a little bit more, and it's all for your safety.
As I indicated tonight, I'm going to be dealing with some things with regard to some more, much greater specificity. Yeah. And I have a video that I'd like to play. And then I have some other articles that are worth putting up and displaying so that we can react to them. Anyway, I have a video. This is of incumbent Sheriff Bob Norris's campaign kickoff event from about 7 months ago. And I have some cuts to play for you on this, and then I'd like your response. And as you're responding, I'll try, because I have no producer, to see if I can get to the next appropriate cut that I'd like you to address. So this is the first one, and all candidates are not evil, but I want to find out your take on what he's saying in this at this point.
Let's fast forward then a few months to we were in COVID. We had all these mandates and dictates, and so on my first day of my 4-year term, I put out a press release. Incoming sheriff will not enforce dictates on healthy citizens. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office the Kootenai County Sheriff will not enforce unenforceable law or executive mandates on its citizen. It is not law enforcement's job to get between you, your health, and your doctor. Enforcing criminal sanctions on otherwise law-abiding citizens goes against the fundamentals of the U.S. and Idaho Constitution. We trust citizens to assess their own risk and take the necessary precautions. The sheriff's office role in our community is not to count how many people are in your home or how a private business conducts itself to make a living for the business or its employees. The sheriff's office will never interfere in religious gatherings.
So that's the first cut that I'd like you to respond to.
Yeah.
And as that, let me see if I'm sufficiently facile to be able to get to my next spot here. But in any event, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Kabuki theater. Let's look at the facts of this. He's now talking with some romanticized historical rendition of what took place. Bob Norris was a candidate in 2020. And while Dan Wilson was running my businesses in defiance of the Washington governor's dictates, because free men don't give up our dangerous liberty for whatever kind of tyrannical security that they think they're going to give us, Bob Norris on his own YouTube channel is telling people, hey, I'm seeing you gather in groups larger than 10. You can't be doing that. As I'm driving around town, I see you. And you know what? You have to trust sources, trusted sources like the CDC and Panhandle Health and the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. Then when he gets into office in 2021, so COVID starts happening in February, March of 2020. And by May, June, most of Kootenai County were rebellious people. We weren't abiding by any of the national standards or the standards that were even down in Boise in the South. The people here were already living our lives. The parks were full. The restaurants were full. So it's very, very convenient when it comes to January of 21, when you're sworn in and the people are already rebelling, to come in and say, well, you know what? I'm not going to force anybody to wear a mask. So my question on that statement that he made is, number one, okay, where do you have jurisdiction to make that decision that you're not going to enforce something that I agree should not ever be enforced? Well, you have all of unincorporated county.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
So he's not speaking on behalf of the city of Coeur d'Alene or the city of Post Falls or Rathdrum or Spirit Lake. So, I mean, it sounds all romantic and everything. But then lastly, notice what he says. We're not going to force mandates on healthy citizens. So the question is, would he force people that maybe have COVID to wear the mask? It's unclear, but nonetheless, that was a lot of, what should I say? It's grandstanding and romanticizing something that is just not historically accurate.
I find this the perfect time to step in with this. Not that long ago, when I was still looking to get the hell out of California, always spelled with a K, I came into one of the region's motels. Okay, I'm going to admit it. I'm a big goofus. So we go into the lobby of this motel, really nice lobby. And I'm thinking, to get to where we are, we had to go through Oregon, mask up. We had to go through Washington, mask up. So we were conditioned at that point to think, well, we don't know about Idaho. And so I wear a mask going into the lobby. My wife, Mrs. BZ, wears a mask going into the lobby. And the first damn guy in the lobby looks at us, does a really nice job of trying not to laugh out loud. God bless that guy. That was great. And he says, by the way, you do know you don't have to wear masks here, right? We both looked at each other and we broke up laughing because we thought, yeah, okay, that's really stupid. And why did we do it? But that was our introduction to Idaho. Yeah. That was our introduction to freedom. It was wonderful. Yeah. It was great. Okay, now I've got a second portion here. And I believe, I hope, cross fingers, that I have this queued up appropriately. And let's see if I've got this one. This, I think, if I've got the right cut, is an issue that is near and dear to you.
All right.
(2023) is underfunding county sheriffs playing into the liberal playbook to defund law enforcement. So I've been trying to have this conversation with our governor and our legislature. And I am telling them that the property owner, where the sheriff's office gets most of their revenue, the property owner is the least user of law enforcement services. can we have a conversation on user tax, sales tax, or income tax? Because it is not fair for the property owner to always be saddled with this. So that was the heading of this press release. Most of Sheriff's Office funding comes from property tax. I have asked for a conversation on sales tax and income tax. The property owner is the least user of law enforcement services. A user tax conversation ensures everybody pays, not just property owners. You know, I remember seeing a social media post on this after it was posted, and some guy, he's probably from Washington, and he says, well, that's not true, because when we rob property from your home, when we steal it from your home, you call the sheriff's office and you call law enforcement to report it. Really? It's not even worth explaining on that guy. So that's a true story. All right, here's one that I think you're going to enjoy.
Anyway, your thoughts about that? Funding, law enforcement, taxes, etc., items of that nature.
Well, first of all, instead of going to the taxpayers and asking for yet another raise, whether it's through property tax, sales tax, use tax, whatever, taxes are taxes, right? How about we go through our own books and do a professional audit, a forensic audit, to find out exactly where we're spending the money, where it's going, if it's being spent judiciously, if it's being wasted, where can we cut, where can we reallocate so we focus on the most important aspects of what we're doing instead of just continually throwing the need of more money. And I think this is the problem with a career law enforcement professional who has, again, never made a job out of thin air and has never developed a budget by his own device from his own funds. The problem that Bob has is, and he's done this for 4 years along with that special deputy of his, DC Matari County Commissioner, is always asking for more money. The reason I first decided to challenge this guy is because we were at a state town hall back. The legislators were meeting once a month to the public to inform us about what's going on, take question and answers. And Bob, before the event starts, comes up, commandeers a mic, and starts ranting and raving and blaming and complaining why he couldn't adequately do his job as sheriff because the state that was sitting allegedly on $1 billion wasn't giving him a fair share. And if they didn't fix it, bad things were going to happen. And that was the very first time listening to the same rhetoric, which has remained the same for the full 4 years, that I decided, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. And, the bottom line is this year alone, we're going to be in Kootenai County faced with a 3% property tax increase due to his sheriff budget having gone up 33% since he took over back in 2021. Last year it was at 43 million. This year it's at 50 million. I've watched it, some of the budget items that he's requesting. And if this were my business, I can tell you that I would be chopping things left and right because you don't really need the things that your people tell you need just because they say that they need them. And this is the problem. It's never enough for this guy. And I think it's ridiculous. I think it's inflammatory to say, okay, yeah, the property tax is paid by homeowners or those that own property. But here's the other aspect. Who else is going to be paying this use tax? I mean, if we're already paying for through our property taxes, what are we going to now, instead of paying more on our property taxes, we're going to pay more in sales tax or use tax? It's unclear. I think he needs to get his house in order first before he starts complaining about money issues.
Let me go for this, and I want to put some things in perspective. I did this last show, and I liked it, and I'm going to do it again right now. See the little red up in North Idaho? That's Kootenai County. That's where I live. That's where Dan Wilson could potentially be sheriff. And so we're way up in North Idaho right there. And again, for perspective, this is a closer look at Kootenai County, and it contains a number of the cities that you see right there. So it's a populated area, and it's got some mountains, a lot of lakes. Lake Coeur d'Alene, the city of Coeur d'Alene, are all within them. So that's just to provide a bit of a perspective of what we're dealing with here. I'd like to continue now this, let me go over here, and more from Sheriff Norris, and then your response, Dan Wilson.
In addition to that, what we've done in these last few years is we have gotten probably $1.3 million of donated equipment here on the Sheriff's Office to better serve you, the Kootenai County residents. A guy who actually approached me with the thought of this, I actually told him no the first time, and I said, I just don't think we're there. And then we had the winter from hell, where we had officer-involved shootings, we had running gun battles. So Todd Stamm is here, Todd, where are you at? Raise your hand. Todd was largely responsible for bringing that helicopter that we use for many of those high-profile investigations. Mr. Anonymous, Mr. and Mrs. Anonymous also helped.
So, Dan Wilson, any response to that information?
Yeah, I mean, this is a much larger story, and we probably don't have time to get into all the intricacies of this. But in summary, this helicopter that we are now using, that is not owned by Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, and yet everything about it is tied back to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, and there's pay to play and all sorts of things and tentacles that have made this a mess. I think it's very, very dangerous when you're already at a budget shortfall to then decide that you're going to engage with this private entity to provide services that the county next door, an actual government agency, was providing for the same dollar amount. We were using, up until 2023, Spokane County's air unit. We had an MOU with them for $10,000 a year. They have multi-aircraft. They have hoist capabilities. It was a very good deal. But because there's deals to be made and backroom, things that are done between different entities, we now have this big old mess on our hands of a helicopter that is not owned by the county, but yet the employees of the sheriff's office are tied into the ownership of it, and they happen to also be overseeing their own business. I mean, it is a mess, and I think that when we're talking about budget problems, it would have been far better for us to stick with the $10,000 a year guarantee that we had with Spokane, and to focus our resources on other more important things for the county. Look, we just don't have the terrain that Southern California does. We don't need an air bureau here. We use search and rescue, and occasionally we need to find somebody that we're surveilling or, in an active law enforcement investigation. But outside of that, it's not necessary, and it's a complete waste, and they're duping the taxpayers and the general public into feeling emotional about something that is just logically not needed.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Okay, now back on March 14th, as evidenced by this writer to the Coeur d'Alene Press, and I think this was letters to the editor, Sheriff Bob Norris apparently called for some kind of a showdown to talk about various points and allegations. So you there's more to this than the story, and this is what I would like you then now to fill in, if you would.
Yeah. Well, when I first started running, as I've stated earlier, I started uncovering things, as you often do when you're actually engaged in a position that you're attempting to take over. And many people came to me and started telling me things that were going on, and I would research. Well, remember that Bob Norris, the current sheriff, is an elected official. That means he represents us, and he should be answering questions when we ask them. So there was two things that were going on in early February, January, February, questions that I was asking about both candidate and current Sheriff Bob Norris and County Commissioner Bruce Matari. And the very first thing that I was concerned about is the sheriff and his emotional volatility. Now, you and I both know, being men that were lawmen, how important it is that your sheriff is that beacon of solid steadiness, unmoving. It has to exude confidence. And Bob Norris frequently, as we have shown on our Instagram page and Facebook page and YouTube, many clips of him presenting to the public in town halls, where we're not talking about anything that is a tear-jerking moment, like something happening to children or, some heinous act. These are just merely talking to the people about what's going on in a town hall, and he frequently breaks down and cries. And it's very, very odd timing. It doesn't make sense. And it started making me very uncomfortable when I was at these town halls. And then there's the times where he's been caught violently getting into people's faces, not touching them, but with enough breakdown in his composure to yell at his constituents to get out of his face, get out of here. You ought to be ashamed for wearing a shirt that you are wearing, which happened to be an Eamon Bundy t-shirt. Now, all of that caused me to start questioning, why is this guy so emotionally unstable? And it had come to my attention that he was on a substantial disability retirement from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office that he began getting in around 2014, 2015. This year alone, it's at about $187,000 in disability. Now, just because somebody's on a disability doesn't mean that they're a bad person or that, there's something wrong with that. But when you demonstrate a continual emotional, instability like he has been doing, we have to ask ourselves, knowing that he's on a disability, is he disabled in a way that could be potentially putting the county at risk? Does he have the mental capacity or the physical capacity to truly sit in this most important of all elected officials' office? Is he well to do that? So we asked this question, and what are the restrictions on your settlement? And I personally asked those questions, and he didn't like that. And rather than providing evidence to refute what I was asking or to answer my questions, he said nothing. Now, the second thing is, and this is, in my opinion, really bad. When Bob Norris was a candidate in 2019 and 2020, his campaign manager was a guy by the name of Bruce Matari. Bruce Matari came from Washington, D.C., and he showed up all of a sudden in Kootenai County, and he was the campaign manager for Bob. Bob is sworn in as the 13th sheriff of Kootenai County in 2021. Shortly thereafter, Bob Norris gives Bruce Matari, his former campaign manager, a special deputization. And you know, BZ, what a special deputization is. Basically, it is giving certain powers and certain, what would you call, it'll take me a second to think about privileges. Thank you. That, most law enforcement officers that have actually gone through an academy and the background checks and the polygraphs and the psychs and all those things that make us, able to be cops, qualified. Well, he just gives Bruce this for, no reason. And he brags about it in the November 18th Coeur d'Alene Press article, where he talks about cross deputizations and special deputizations. And both of them, Bob and Bruce, brag about how important it is that they have this cozy relationship. Well, I forgot one important detail. Shortly thereafter, in 2022, Bruce Matari runs for county commissioner, becomes the newest of 3 county commissioners, and he is the only county commissioner with this special deputization. And he does have access to privileged information. Now, we're finding a few things out now that I was not aware of earlier, which is we don't even know if he truly has a non-disclosure agreement like the sheriff said that he does, hence why Bruce can't talk about the things that he talks with the sheriff about. But anyway, I'm posing these questions, and rather than once again Bob and or Bruce coming out and saying, hey, here's where you're factually incorrect, or here are the facts of the matter, well, they used an old Saul Alinsky tactic. So what did they do? They reframed my questions about the ethical nature and the moral nature of what they were doing, and they decided to make a claim that Dan Wilson is publicly stating that we, Bob and Bruce, have committed criminal acts. Well, I've never said that. In fact, anybody could go through any of my videos that I have had prior to that event in early March of 2024. It's simply not true. But rather than answer the questions, which would be very easy to do, they decide to come up with their own challenge. So one day out of the blue, I get an email signed by Sheriff Bob Norris in the full capacity, full color of his authority, where he says, you've been making these criminal accusations about us, and therefore we are demanding you show up to this date and time in this location to show your proof to a law enforcement standard of your allegations of our criminal wrongdoing, and you will be there. Well, you know as well as I do what a law enforcement standard is, and merely asking the questions and showing the evidence, which I've always produced the evidence for everything that I've claimed for people in the community to see what I'm seeing and come to their own conclusions. They made a whole event about it, and we were never, we were never given any input as to the venue, who the moderator was going to be, the format, none of that. We're just told you're going to show up. Well, I declined because I knew that it was never going to be any kind of a fair situation. It wasn't going to be a debate. And in the end, this debate, this alleged debate challenge that they had was quite interesting. And people can find this on Rumble under Coeur d'Alene Freedom Watch. So it's CDA Freedom Watch on Rumble back in March 14th of 2024. You can look at the 3-ring circus that took place. Now, during this event, they brought up all of their grievances of me and the things that I had been asking, and it's quite humorous to watch. But notice this. This was a campaign event because it wasn't an official county business event. However, you had Bob Norris up there with a name tag that says Sheriff Bob Norris, County Commissioner Bruce Matari, Prosecuting Attorney Bryant Bushling, candidate Dan Wilson. So it was a lynching, and I refused to go to it. And as people can watch through this video, they can see with all the Bob Norris t-shirts on and the table set up to sell his merchandise, and the sycophants at the end that were wearing Bob Norris for Sheriff t-shirts that were talking about what a coward Dan Wilson is. Well, the people can look and come to their own conclusion. But yeah, it was not a real debate. It wasn't per the Federal Election Commission standards. So it was nothing more than an attempt to try to discredit those things that I had been asking, and they never did answer the question. I mean, they never provided any proof to the contrary for what I was saying.
Let me ask you a question at this point now. Is it too late for a debate? I mean, it's September 17th. Mm-hmm. It's Tuesday. It's what, 45, 46, 47 days away from the election. Is a debate too late? Or would it be something that if it were an actual debate, as you indicated, in a venue, both parties agree, et cetera, would you be interested in doing a debate? Not just
absolutely
a come together, but a true debate about issues and facts.
Yeah. Well, I've been pushing for a real debate for almost 10 months. And the fact of the matter is that in July of this year, our team sent out a press release to Legacy and Alternative Media requesting a debate per the FEC standards to Bob Norris. We gave him until September 15th. So that was a couple days ago on this last Sunday to be exact, which we said we want to have a debate. We want to have it fair, an agreed upon venue, format, moderator, all of that. Bob Norris never responded. Now we know that from one of our Facebook posts alone that we promoted through Meta, we had over 50,000 views in Kootenai County alone, just on Facebook. Bob Norris has never responded. And frankly, we're being told by those inside his own campaign that he is absolutely terrified to debate me, hence why he's refusing to do so.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, it's very sad because I think the two of you have very distinct and separate philosophies and views. And I think it would be a great thing to be able to get all of those on the table so that the voters can see clearly what the difference is, not just in two. Okay, here's a video over here and here's a video over here. This fat guy did 2 videos with Dan. Okay, fine. Let's see these 2 individuals that are interested in being sheriff of Kootenai County. Let's see what they have to say to each other, mano a mano, and directly to their face. I think that would be a wonderful kind of thing. Also, in the process of, again, doing show prep and research for this second interview, I came across an April 19th, let me put this up right now, 2024 article from the Idaho Report, which indicates unresolved issues with the Norris residency regarding residency requirements in the state of Idaho. It's a lengthy article. Let me see if I can scroll through this. There are a number of affidavits, a number of documents that are included in there. I mean, it gets into real detail about this stuff. The Norris timeline, Idaho residency, activity, conflicting statements, votes in California while claiming residency in Idaho, various driver's licenses, lies to the Los Angeles Sheriff's Office, and potential wire fraud. And there are a number of supporting documents. I had not heard anything about this. This is new to me. Is this something that you had heard about or known about? I don't need to go into great detail, but is this valid? I mean, is this a serious concern that voters should have?
I think they absolutely should. I mean, these were things that were hashed out 4 or 5 years ago when Bob was running back in 2019, 2020. Unfortunately, people have short attention spans and people don't want to do the time that it takes to research evidence that is being presented to folks to come to their own conclusions. But yes, I mean, what you're talking about is he was living up here in Idaho, claiming a homeowner's exemption for his property taxes while he still was maintaining his California residence and driver's license. And so when he finally fessed up to this after being exposed, it was of course somebody else's fault. And, you know, they signed something incorrectly and he paid his back taxes of what he owed. I think it was $75 penalty. I don't remember. But that was just one of the issues in 2020. I mean, you also have the theft of personnel records from Captain Mike Bauer. Mike Bauer was a retired LASD captain of major crimes and the Special Enforcement Bureau. He retired in 2002. He started at Los Angeles back when Bob was 6 years old. So, I mean, this is a guy that went through, you know, the Sherman Block days all the way into Baca and Tanaka. But Norris fraudulently obtained personnel records and lied, and we have those text messages as well when he was caught by the sheriff in Los Angeles after fraudulently obtaining these. But this is just one of many things that this guy has in his closet that he always has an excuse, but doesn't really produce the receipts to indicate as to why he really isn't responsible for his own actions. And this is just more of the same of what we see from him.
I have a Kootenai Journal, an article from the Kootenai Journal.
Yeah.
And I think this bears repeating. I get the sense from you that people are attempting to purposely and intentionally misalign two terms that are being used. So in this, Wilson calls for a citizen posse in Kootenai County. And I could see where that might be an issue, where people have misinterpreted posse as something similar to, well, Hayden and, militia.
Yeah.
So could you briefly address that issue and let's attempt to calm a few people out there who are thinking, oh my God, this guy with the black hat is calling for a militia. Are you?
Yeah. No, absolutely not. In fact, I have never been a part of any militia. So there's that. And nor will I personally. Number one, I think they're full of feds, and then the rest, I don't know. You know what I'm saying, right? But here is again where we have allowed the Marxists over the years to redefine certain terms, right? The posse is derived from, I believe it was 1878. I may got my date wrong, when Congress passed the Posse Comitatus Act, which restricted the military at the time. And of course, they had to eventually update it for not only Space Force, but the Air Force. But it was prohibiting any kind of military intervention in domestic disputes. We're talking about after the Civil War, when things were, still tumultuous, roving gangs that would come through towns and terrorize people. And so Congress realized that they had a problem. You can't bring in the military, you can't bring in the cavalry to squell these things. But what they said is the sheriff, we're going to give him the power, posse comitatus, power to the county. It's not that hard. Gives the sheriff, or the chief law enforcement officer of the county, the ability to bring into his employment, if you will, his service is probably the better term, to use anybody he needs in order to secure his county. There is no limit. There are no ramifications for choosing somebody that was former military, but maybe somebody that was a baker. I mean, there was no qualifications or pre-qualifications. So fast forward to today, in the state of Idaho, as is the same in many other states, the sheriff, by the Constitution, is required to maintain at all expense the security of the county. So a sheriff that forms a vetted volunteer citizens posse. We're not putting badges and guns on anybody. What we're doing is we're merely gathering into our fold people of all walks of life and experience and professions, and categorized and organized so that in any kind of an event, man-made or a natural disaster, we're not waiting for the federal government to come and save us. We're not waiting for the state to come and save us. We secure ourselves right here, right now at the county level. Now, when I was growing up, probably like you, BZ, I watched a lot of Westerns. And yes, I've been wearing a cowboy hat since I was 4 years old. I loved sitting on the couch with my dad on Saturday nights watching Maverick and Paladin and Bonanza and, all those greats. But in those old movies, the sheriff, when he was going after the stagecoach robbers, would gather a group of men that he would throw these badges on, and they would take their guns and off they would ride after the evil doers and bring them to justice. And that's unfortunately where a lot of people think a posse is. And that's sort of kind of, but not really what it is. And at the same time, you're exactly right. We have been forced fed this lie for years that Kootenai County is a racist county. Now, we had in the 80s and the 90s, Richard Butler, who was a white supremacist who came originally from Lancaster, California, up to Kootenai County, and he was a pain in the butt. I mean, he would spew his hatred and, all those things that are heinous that we don't align with as the average Kootenai County citizen. But somehow, because of his bad actions, which he was covered under the First Amendment until he crossed the line and they broke some laws and eventually were bankrupted over it and were charged. We're somehow supposed to take on that same burden of this jackass and bear that burden for the rest of our life into perpetuity, that Kootenai County is a very, very racist county, and it's complete crap. It's a lie. So, yeah, you're right. The posse conjures up all these fears that people on a different political persuasion want to fan up the flames, not realizing that the citizens posse that Dan Wilson is going to enact is going to be there to secure these very people and their right to life, liberty, and property. So,
folks, I want to remind everybody that you're listening. Oh, let's see. Producer, would you do this, please?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm BZ on the SHR Media Network, and I am broadcasting live on rumble.com. And over to my, over here, I always get this backwards, is Dan Wilson, an independent and a candidate for sheriff of Kootenai County. So I have tons of more details to speak about. So Dan Wilson, on June 2nd of 2020, a bunch of citizens showed up in the streets of Coeur d'Alene amidst information indicating that elements of Antifa and other possible violent groups were intent on coming to the city. And of course, people poo-pooed this and said, oh my gosh, you're called Gun Delane. And let me see if I can, let's go over here and scroll down through this. This is from the Coeur d'Alene Press. And the thrust that I think they were intending to pull off of this was, oh my gosh, you horrible Second Amendment lovers, you gun displayers, you evil people, you right-wingers, you nuts wearing tinfoil. I should like to remind everybody of what the temper of the times was back then. Yeah. This is the summer in the year of 2020, where there were national protests, national riots, arsons, where billions of dollars of property was destroyed, where businesses, government offices, police stations were torched, destroyed, and crushed, where 25 plus people were killed, where BLM and Antifa protested en masse all over America in primarily leftist cities, where literally...
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Multiple thousands of law enforcement officers were injured during that year, and where riots did in fact occur essentially next door to Kootenai County in Spokane, Washington. So any thoughts on the evil citizens who decided to arm themselves and make a public display of it in June of 2020 in what some folks began to term, like I said, Gun Delane? And they meant it as a pejorative. It wasn't some funny ha-ha. That was not meant to be anything positive.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the third column. And so I'm going to start off by saying that I'm proud of people in Kootenai County that rose to the occasion to protect their city and in their county. There is nothing, I believe, greater than seeing fellow citizens that are there ready to protect their fellow citizen. I mean, that is about as American as you get. But, you know, there's several things that concern me about that. And of course, I was active law enforcement just 20 miles to the west at that time. And the city of Spokane, where most of the rioting was taking place in Spokane County, which is right next to Kootenai County. The agency I work for, we weren't experiencing any of the riots. We were sending all of our riot equipment to the city of Spokane to reinforce their supplies. So, I mean, putting that into kind of perspective, I found it a little bit odd that with the fusion centers and all the intel that we have in this area, that Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, Coeur d'Alene Police, Post Falls Police apparently didn't have the info that these actors were coming into the county to cause some chaos. So to me, that's kind of a first clue that I've always been curious about. And so I know that there was a call that went out to the citizenry, and I went through Facebook, and all of a sudden you started seeing citizens, righteous citizens from all over the area coming down and converging primarily at Sherman Avenue. That's the historic downtown Coeur d'Alene, to protect everything. And interestingly enough, law enforcement was nowhere at the front lines. They were kind of standing off in the foreground. And wouldn't you think that it's important that if you're going to put up a barrier, if you will, concentric rings of security, so to speak, wouldn't you expect that a sheriff would be there with his deputies to help guide and safely direct the citizenry as to what the rules of engagement are, and just to make certain that everybody understands what you should and shouldn't be doing, and just leading the people? Wouldn't you think that, BZ?
You just broached a topic that I'm going to address if I get the time tonight to be able to do it: relationships with other agencies.
Yeah.
I'm going somewhere with this, however. So here's another article. And I find the irony absolutely dripping on this. This is from abc.net. Australia. Amid Black Lives Matter protests, a rumored Antifa invasion fueled fear in regional Idaho. Pot, meat, kettle, calling it black. Because if we recall, the gun laws of Australia were such that in 1996, there was outright confiscation.
Yeah.
And let me pull this down and push this back up. And this was what citizens saw in Australia. They literally confiscated handguns. Yeah. Have you handed in your illegal firearm? Attention duck hunters. You'll be surprised what banned guns are worth these days. Of course, they didn't pay them their actual worth. But the one in the upper right is the one that really intrigues me. Remember, Australians, personal protection is no reason to have a gun. Now, when you get through laughing at the stupidity of that, then you'll realize how ironic is it that Australia decides that it's going to make any of these comments at all.
Yeah.
And for people also, let's make no mistake. And again, roll with me just a little bit, folks. Gun confiscation is the eventual point. It is the eventual point of gun control as far as Democrats and leftists and globalists are concerned. It's already happened in Australia. This is exactly what the globalists want. Hillary Clinton has recently espoused it again. Kamala Harris has said the exact same thing on video. Personal protection is no reason to have a gun. So when it's said that gun confiscation can occur here in the United States, that's a lie. It's a lie. It already has. BC, that's so ridiculous to even think about. Back in August of 2005, during Hurricane Katrina,
yes,
New Orleans police superintendent, who is like a chief, Eddie Compass, declared, and this is a quote, "No one will be able to be armed. Guns will be taken. Only law enforcement will be allowed to have guns." As it delineates all through the article. We don't have a chance to watch this all the way, but people say, oh no, this has never happened before. Well, listen and watch.
No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
It was a human drama with emotions and tensions running high. Patty Connie is still trying to recover physically and emotionally.
They really did a number on me.
From the day police forced her from her home.
It was traumatic. All of a sudden, they were banging on the front door, the side.
Okay, let me stop that for right now. Because essentially what occurred is they were attempting to move people from floodwaters and said essentially, you can't have guns, you need to evacuate, you need to get out of here. This older lady was on high ground, as she pointed out, and I don't have time for the video for the rest of it.
Right.
She had food, supplies, and she had a small revolver.
Yeah.
There, she didn't want to leave. She was not being threatened. And you say gun confiscation can't occur? Well, I'm sorry to tell you, it already has.
Yeah.
There's another
look at all the gun laws that they've passed over the years are definitely reflection of that. I mean, you look at the state of California and even Washington State. I mean, they do it in all sorts of manners and means. So yeah, you're exactly right.
I want to point out this. We're getting close. Thank God. Everyone is saying we're getting close to the end of the questions that I have for tonight. We know that gun confiscation can occur. It's the ultimate goal of things. I have stated, and it's no shock that I am a conservative. I'm not a Republican. I am not a Democrat. I am, and I have been, a registered independent for quite some time for reasons that I shall not go into here. But I want to bring this issue to the stage now and ask you about this, because there's this article, which was August 14th, and I want to discuss this with you. First, for people who don't know what this issue is, I want to read the story, because this isn't just applicable to, Idaho. It's applicable to your state as well, wherever you are. The headline is Twin Falls Gun Shop, Police at Odds Over Alleged Gun Registration Program. Several gun shops in Twin Falls are alleging the Twin Falls Police Department is maintaining a form of gun registration and that the police are trying to force them into the program under the threat of law. So Idaho Dispatch, which is this journalism page right here, sat down with the owners of a company, Quick Response Firearms and Homestead Tactical, both companies located in Twin Falls, and both shops say that the Twin Falls PD is trying to force them to use a program called Leads Online. They claim the program not only acts as a de facto gun registration program, because it requires personal information about the customer selling the gun, as well as information about the firearms being sold. So TFPD said that told the gun shops that the program helps them catch criminals faster. So the dispute between the gun owners and the police department and the gun shops is over secondhand purchases of firearms by the gun shops. Now, according to these two companies, these two firearms businesses, federal law already requires them to maintain a list of every firearm that is sold to or by the shop, as well as the personal information of the buyer and seller. That's the ATF Form 4473. The gun shop maintains an acquisition and disposition log with every customer's personal information as required by the ATF. Both gun shops say the log is maintained offline. Customer personal information is protected, and personal information is only disclosed in the event of an investigation. So there's an issue here. The people in the gun shop say they purchased over 8,000 firearms since they began business in 2019, and that to date, there are only 2 stolen firearms they have ever had. And the one owner says he has not had any stolen firearms sold to his business to date. So who owns Leads Online, and where does this information go? Now, Leads Online says they do not sell information gathered during the program to third parties. The concern is by the businesses. I want to show you another article that I dredged up. This is also from Idaho Dispatch. And the headline is, all law enforcement nationwide has access to Idaho data at center of gun dispute in Twin Falls. Idaho Dispatch has learned that Leads Online allows law enforcement in all 50 states to access its database if a user's agency has paid for that specific level of access. Thoughts on this, Dan Wilson?
Well, look, I think this is, you're going to find that the owners that are promoting this and buying into it are progressives. I haven't looked myself to find out where all the roads lead, but yeah, dangerous things. I personally do not believe that firearms should be registered, period. I think you should be able to buy one and walk out with it. And, you know, that should be your privacy. But again, because we have acquiesced a lot of our liberty over the years, all in the name of safety, because you know that every person that uses a firearm to commit a heinous crime or acts of violence, you know, they always obtain them legally, right? I mean, how many times have mass killings taken place by those that, you know, lawfully, right, were able to have a firearm? So this is nothing more than, you know, a backdoor to invade people's privacy and start these databases so that the powers to be will know where to find these firearms and, more importantly, these owners when that time of leverage is coming. And I'm afraid it's probably a lot closer than we suspect.
Let me mention this. So let's get down to brass tacks, because this is quite frankly where I'm going, period, end of statement. If you, Dan Wilson, were ever given an order from the federal government, the state or local government regarding wholesale firearms confiscation, notwithstanding, individual lawful warrants involving individuals suspected of committing a crime with a gun, would you ever deign to consider intervening in such a way as to remove firearms from lawful possessors? It's a simple question that most people won't answer.
Yeah. Well, the answer for me is absolutely not. We will not ever allow that to happen in Kootenai County, not by any stretch. And we will use whatever means necessary to defend our rights, because that is one of our guaranteed protections in this thing called the Bill of Rights, you know, article or, amendment number 2, the rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be what? What is
infringed?
Infringed. So pretty clear to me. I think we need to get back to where our laws are easily interpreted and aren't full of a bunch of hidden meanings that these scholars want to somehow derive out of, you know, those simple sentence.
And here's where I'm going. And this is why I'm going there. And that's why this show and listening to Dan Wilson is so important as a constitutional sheriff. This is not applicable just to my county, just to my state. It's applicable to everybody else all around the nation. Your county, your state. Blue or not, what will your people do when placed under pressure?
Yeah.
I found some very interesting things. Obedience and conformity. We already have experiments that indicated. Here's the Milgram experiment. It was conducted in the 60s. It tested people's willingness to shock, literally electric shock, other people if they were instructed to do so by an authority figure. 65% of the participants agreed. Oh, they'll kill somebody if an authority figure told them to do so. The Ash experiments in the 1950s concluded that people were willing to ignore reality in order to conform to the group. And this is why I'm going somewhere with this, and why this point is so critical.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
And necessary to be emphasized. I have a copy of this book, Ordinary Men. We're going back to the 1940s, documented in this book by Christopher Browning, which illustrated how those ordinary men were willing to commit mass shootings, atrocities, roundups of Jews to camps because of group setting pressures, committing actions they would never do of their own volition. Now, we're saying, and again, oh, BZ, don't be stupid. This can't happen here. Were you awake, folks, during the earlier portion of 2024 when we had all sorts of people on college campuses who were beating Jews? The first thing I thought of was, did we not grok the concept of Dachau and Auschwitz and atrocities? Do we need to relive history all over again? And to think that this is 2024 and we're still doing this stuff. This is nothing new. Like I say, we see this today. So could you, Dan Wilson, could you hold out? And there could potentially be very extreme pressure as a constitutional sheriff.
Yeah. Well, I will never acquiesce. I will never bend a knee, because number one, what my personal faith is in, where I get my guidance. And I also have a code. I've lived by a code ever since I was a young kid in grade school. I already know what I stand for. I know that I can't be bought. I can't be sold. I know that I will bend a knee to no man, because I was born into a country. I have a heritage. I have the blood coursing through my veins of those that went before me that said all men are equally created under God. Every man has the right to life, liberty, and property. And when you aren't practicing, when you aren't doing schemas of what if scenarios, you're not exercising how you're going to respond in these situations, then you're going to find yourself, if you're not paying attention, right at that level that you were just talking about by those individuals that could be coerced into doing evil things. Now, look, in 2020, we saw a little glimpse of this with all these little beta males that were running around telling you, put your mask on, and they had some kind of authority. In fact, a situation that my wife and I still laugh about to this day is it was 2020, and we were in Las Vegas after they reopened Las Vegas. It was pretty much a ghost town, but it was ridiculous. You look at all these things that you say don't make sense, right? If you're smoking or drinking, you don't have to wear a mask, but if you're walking through a hallway right next to somebody that's eating or drinking, not wearing a mask, you have to wear your mask. And so I was not going to wear my mask, and my wife and I came down out of the elevators into the main lobby. I think we're in the Mirage, and they got a security guard right at the elevator to make certain everybody's 6 feet apart. My wife and I are the only ones there. We're walking out, and as I'm leaving the elevator lobby, I hear, "Hey, sir, put on your mask." Well, I just ignore it, and I continue walking through the lobby. Well, pretty soon I start getting followed by a couple of these beta males. And one says, "Hey, you got to put on your mask," and I'm ignoring him again. And then finally I hear him get on his radio and say, "Hey, guy with the white cowboy hat, not complying." And before long, I see a convergence of all these security guys right on my tail, right? And I looked around this kid after he got on the radio, and I said, "Did you really just narc me out? Are you kidding me?" So you see this where these guys that in real life, if it were me and him in an alley, he would never talk to me that way, right? Because obviously he knows that it could be very detrimental to him. But you give him a little bit of authority because the state or the county health board or whoever gives him the authority to be the mask police. And this is really what we're seeing, right? Eventually, inch by inch, this will creep into where you will take the life of another human because you've been coerced and you have been convinced, because you have no code, you don't have a creed, that it's for the greater good.
Or because somebody is a monster and because they're evil. Gee, that wouldn't
True.
have happened just to an individual
True.
recently with 2 attempted assassinations. A few final questions about surrounding law enforcement agencies in general, Dan Wilson. I've had this occur in a couple of departments. As far as you know, what is the relationship between the Kootenai County Sheriff's Department and various surrounding agencies? Because at first blush, I'm thinking, okay, ISP, Idaho State Police, Coeur d'Alene Police, Post Falls Police, Rathdrum Police, and okay, who have I missed?
Spirit Lake.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the reason I ask that is in the 70s, all the stuff that I did in the 70s. Okay, I worked for a coastal sheriff's department, and our relationship with that department and CHP was abysmal. It was bad. CHP wouldn't take our deuces, our drunk drivers, our DUIs. And the customary agreement between most of the counties, things change, depending upon what kind of a contract you have, is that if you make a stop as an SO, you turn over your DUIs to CHP, and they take it because they love the overtime anyway. That relationship was so bad, so terrible. So if some associations are contentious, and I don't know if they are, just asking the question off the top of my fat little head, is there anything that you could do in order to smooth over working relationships, or is that something that need not be considered anyway? Because in general, Kootenai County Sheriff's Department has a really good working relationship with all the other surrounding agencies.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Kootenai County does not have a very good relationship with all municipalities, police departments in the county. I know of one in particular where the sheriff attempted to take over the contract. So the department was struggling, and he thought that the department was going to basically implode and he was going to move in and save the day. But at the last minute, a couple real pros from LAPD retired, came in and said, you know what, we believe in this city, and we're going to take our years of experience as D3 lieutenants, and we're going to change this agency and turn it into something that should be a model for all other agencies in Kootenai County. And I love that. I love that kind of an attitude, which is to protect and serve the people. Now, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county. So regardless of whether his citizen lives in Post Falls or Rathdrum or Coeur d'Alene, the fact of the matter is all those citizens are still the sheriff's citizens to protect. So the sheriff should be reaching out to every chief and working with those chiefs to find out how the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office can serve them in their communities. What resources can we assist with? And I'm also a huge believer that we also need the chiefs and their experience and their wisdom and their expertise in areas to say, hey, this is what you've done over here. Help us. How can we make things better in Kootenai County by working with some of your expertise? So I believe that to do anything less than to, as a sheriff, be a servant and go around to all of the other agencies and try to foster a relationship of cooperation for the citizens is anything less is completely ridiculous and should not be tolerated. Now, another thing, sheriffs, as we've talked about earlier, some have a lot of law enforcement experience. Some don't. Myself, 12 years as a reserve. I get it. But it is a representative position. And there's only 3 things that are required to be a sheriff in Idaho. You have to be 21, a citizen of the United States, and you have to actually live in the county that you're running. So that's a clue to people. However, chiefs, the police chiefs, have vast experience. They've gone through the entire ranks. They've worked every kind of unit and specialty, and they've earned those 4 stars that they put on their collars. Well, our current sheriff likes to one-up those chiefs, and he puts 5 stars. And I think that's a California thing, maybe from Bobcat and Tanaka. But this guy, Dan Wilson, will be a 2-star sheriff, because I don't at any point claim that I am a better law enforcement officer than these chiefs. What I believe is that the sheriff sets the policy and is the representative of the people. That's what his primary duty is, to secure the county. And you probably better get along with all the other agencies that partner with you in order to take care of the county.
Okay, let me ask you,
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Probably one of the final questions for tonight. So Dan Wilson, independent candidate for sheriff of Kootenai County. There's another point I'd like to address and then ask your thoughts about it. That's involving the sharing of data between your department if you became sheriff and other agencies. Now, I've said this before, but I predicate this upon the fact that I'm a conservative and a little L libertarian. I do not believe in hot and cold running drugs, nor do I believe in open borders, as most good libertarians do. That's why I say I'm a little L libertarian. I guess that would be kind of I don't know. So certainly when it comes to privacy and the Fourth Amendment, I'm a big L believer in that stuff. So years ago, in my final agency, corporate representatives came into my department attempting to sell my department LPR technology. And that's LPR is license plate reader technology.
Yeah.
Their claim was that it's going to readily scoop up stolen vehicles and wanted vehicles that have been attached to crimes. Okay, I grok that concept. I get that. But being who I am, my very first question was, okay, with whom will you be sharing this information? Because you will share it. And how much money will you make on the sharing of this data? Because you will make money on this. And the answers were just surrounding local agencies and, well, not much money at all. Both were lies.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you, Dan Wilson, would be, well, first, I do not know the answer to this question. I'm posing it to you. Perhaps you don't either, but I admit my ignorance on this. Do you know if Kootenai County has access or utilizes LPR technology? And if they do, with whom would or do they share it?
Yeah.
I do not know.
Yeah. This is very timely because I have recently in the past month come out as a strong opponent of LPRs. So Kootenai County has had some variations of LPRs for about 16 years, but you and I both know that technology changes dramatically. And so the ALPRs, the automatic license plate readers or recognition that I was using back 10, 15 years ago was far different than it is today. We only had 2 patrol cars. The cameras were fickle. We got a lot of false reads, and most of the time we would turn off the alarms because it would drive you crazy. But the difference with the technology today is when you and I were in our cars and we had our MDCs in our computers and we were running a plate through our database, whatever we were using for automated dispatch, you run through everything through either the local state that was keeping all records, as well as the national database that the FBI carries. And when we would query a license, that went from our console directly to those databases, and then it either came back as nothing, no records of importance, or hey, wanted person, or the vehicle was involved in X, Y, and Z. But with these LPRs, and Motorola specifically for Kootenai County, that data is gone through a third party. So as you're using the LPR to capture the images, and it shoots all of these plates through multiple databases throughout the country, what the new technology allows is it allows multiple access from all sorts of law enforcement that has access to these records. They will also sell the information commercially, and people say, well, no, they're not going to sell the registered owners, but yet they're making money off of selling the data. They make no bones that it not only goes to the corporate world, but it also goes to law enforcement agencies. And here's the part that really bothers me, is that Motorola is now bragging through their vigilance license plate reader software. So the cameras are Motorola, but the software that runs this, it can even predict through AI where a certain vehicle may be. If you find a vehicle that you want to investigate further, maybe it was involved with a crime or a wanted person, the AI can help predict where that will be in the future. This is where it's going. This is moving towards the 15-minute cities. It's going towards the overall surveillance state. And I have come out publicly. I stated this in a letter to the Board of County Commissioners when they were attempting to pass the final county budget fiscal year 25 to include the sheriff's $50 million budget. And he was attempting to get funding for about $20,000 a year to use this software on about 38 patrol vehicles, 38 patrol vehicles that are going to be in constant motion 24/7, gathering all this information. And as soon as I got done having my letter of opposition read into the record, he came out and immediately started discussing, hey, this is powerful information, and I would be afraid if a inexperienced candidate that's running were to get a hold of this data. But by the way, we're going to put policies in place, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to secure people's rights. And you know what? From now on, before we officially use this, we're going to have a couple more town halls and get people's input. Well, that sounds kind of impressive, right?
How to have fun, anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa Welcome Bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Except the devil's in the details. The cameras for these 36 patrol vehicles were purchased many, many months prior. So they already spent the money through the budget to buy these cameras, and they had them installed on patrol vehicles down in Utah, where the vehicles get built out. So they already purchased it. They never asked the community what they thought. They just spent this money, spent to have it installed. Then they had them brought up to Kootenai County. The other devil in the detail is this. Sheriff Bob Norris didn't bother to tell the people that were angry that night when he was presenting and my letter was read into the record. He had been using this data for several months prior in demo mode. And I got this through records requests that I obtained a month before this meeting. And lastly, and this is really important, the sheriff, when he was wanting to contradict what I had stated in my letter, was talking about we're going to put all these policies in place because it's powerful information, and we're going to make certain that nobody gets the data that shouldn't have it, and on and on and on. But my record request revealed in the beginning of August of this year, there were no previous nor present policies in place, which means the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office has been operating however many of these license plate readers and running the data with no official policies or procedures on how that data is protected and or kept. So watch. I want to tell the people all over the country that are watching, pay attention to what your leaders are doing, because when they get caught, they can tell you something that sounds pretty impressive, but you have to do your own research. You have to look into what is happening. And the argument is, well, why do you care? We've had these for 16 years in various capacities. Well, you could say the same thing about that damn thing called the Patriot Act. Many people at the beginning of the rollout of the Patriot Act were like convinced, we got to have this. We got to be protected from, terrorism. Well, many of us have become wise over the years, and it's okay to say, we don't care if we've been doing this for 25 years. It's still wrong. We want this to be dead. We don't want to participate in this anymore because guess what? As Americans, we accept risk. We don't exchange our dangerous liberty and the fact that bad things may happen to us in exchange for this kind of certain security, which eventually leads to a Skynet, where they will put you in a bubble and everything is always for officer safety and for public safety. And I reject that. And I think that Americans right now should be rejecting this in mass scale, demanding that your city officials, your sheriffs, your county commissioners get rid of this technology. We do not want to be spied on. And you can make the argument, well, we have these cell phones. And some of that is true. But we do not consent to an all-seeing surveillance state.
That's exactly what you'll get at the very end of this.
Yeah. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime.
Oh, yeah. Beria from Russia.
Yeah.
At the very end of this, and this was, 2003. I was EVOC supervisor at the time. And I was there in the room with that because I was in charge of the emergency vehicle operations course, training, etc. And I heard another individual speaking to the one representative who said, and isn't the ultimate goal of this thing to be able to track one vehicle anywhere, no matter where that particular vehicle goes, all throughout the fruited plain, the United States of America? And the guy said, yes, that's exactly what we're looking for. So the big question is, folks, how much freedom are you willing to give up? Now, maybe LPR on its own, if you're going to be using it in your county and you check to see if there are stolen vehicles or wanted vehicles. You absolutely have to have it because that also comes with a massive price tag. Ask the smaller departments who have been muscled into buying body cams for their officers. It's not just the body cam, it's the servers and everything that's attached to this. The Patriot Act. Oh my God, don't even get me going there because, 210/190, that's just who I am, a conservative and a small L libertarian. So Dan Wilson, independent candidate for sheriff of Kootenai County, Idaho. Is there anything further that you would like to say or any issues that I have failed to address tonight?
No, I think you covered them very robustly. And as always, I enjoy our conversations. I learn a lot, even the conversations that you and I have one-on-one. And here, I'm always learning something from you. But folks, remember, as Americans, we didn't descend from fearful men. We descended from men who understood the times. They acted accordingly. And they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for this thing called liberty. And it's up to us now to hold on to that liberty and to take the lumps that come with that. You will most likely have to fend for yourself from time to time. Bad things can and will happen to you. But those risks far outweigh the consequences of having a government that controls every aspect of your life and squeezes the very liberty and life out of you to the point where your property means nothing because they can control it. Your life means nothing because they can say it's over when they decide it's over. So if you're out there right now and you're vacillating as to whether or not you need to get involved, whether or not you really should be concerned, start vetting every one of your representatives, find out their financial ties, find out who's donating to them, find out their business past, find out everything you can, because I'm afraid that we have been infiltrated by a lot of people that are calling themselves American conservatives, whatever you want to call it. But in reality, they're not the people that they say that they are. And even those that will cry others are rhinos, in my experience, have been often exposed to be worse than the rhinos that they're claiming. So pay attention, but do not ever, ever, ever give up your dangerous liberty. Love people around you. Always take care of folks that you can when it's within your ability to do good to others, and stay strong and courageous through everything. Always have hope. And I just hope that this country will be able to hold on to this republic, that will be able to awaken enough people to take back the liberty that is being taken as we speak, and that we can survive for another 250 years.
Dan Wilson, thank you for being here tonight. Tell people before we go, because this is where I found it. You have a website where people can donate, find more information, discover how they go about, say, helping you. et cetera, that kind of thing. Can you tell people where they should go if they want to assist or donate to your campaign, please?
Sure. Yeah, we greatly appreciate any donation that you can give right now to the campaign. You can give securely at theidahosheriff.com. That's theidahosheriff.com. This website's robust. It has many of the things we talked about today at my positions. We have a YouTube channel, The Idaho Sheriff, where we have over 20-something archived videos of a weekly town hall question and answer that we hold every week. I don't shy away from anything. I don't erase anything that I have published. It's there for the people to see. We also have all of our social media, The Idaho Sheriff on Instagram, X, and Facebook. A live event, again, as I said earlier, every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Come see us, ask your questions. Let's have a discussion. But more importantly, spread the message of liberty without compromise all around. If you can in your Kootenai County, join up with my campaign posse. We need people helping us wave signs. They say that a independent can't win in this county. And you know what? I believe that an independent can and will win because the people are waking up and saying, we're kind of tired of this two-party system. We're seeing what Washington warned us about, and that is parties that exist only for their best interests. So theidahosheriff.com. Thank you so much again, BZ, and I'm looking forward to another stick and some fine whiskey with you, brother.
Hey, wouldn't that be wonderful? I also want to, if I could put this up for a second, just very briefly, I want to talk to Dan about that. Okay, I'm not gonna Bigfoot myself, but Dan Wilson, would you be interested in coming back for a final time before the election? Maybe say towards the end of September, because there are still some things that I would like to chat with you about. Yeah. One of them is an article that just came out recently, and you can go to his site and read about it, but I would like to talk to Dan about that. So would you be interested? It'll be a shortened format. It won't be, 75,000 hours like it was before. So would you be interested in coming back for kind of one final shot?
I wouldn't miss it for the world. And by the way, the time that you and I are together goes by so quick. I don't even know that an hour or two has passed. So I just greatly enjoy the conversation with another fellow brother.
Thank you ever so kindly, folks. That was Dan Wilson, independent candidate for sheriff of Kootenai County. We're going to have another amazing revelation with him. But for right now, I have to say this. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for being here tonight in BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon on the radio show. Thanks to my guest tonight, Dan Wilson, and we will have another sit down with Dan in the not too terribly distant future. As per normal, for promotional consideration, I have promotional consideration by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and also by Shure and Electro Voice microphones, and the board that I use, Arrakis, the Arc Talk Blue, and also by Pratt & Whitney Engines producing Thrust. You can trust. And thanks to everybody who is watching live. Thanks to the people who are listening and watching later on in podcast after I post the show. And everyone can rest assured that in about 10 or 15 minutes, I will be consorting with my KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, not more than about 50 feet away from where I am right now. To everyone, everywhere, to my great guest, Dan Wilson. God bless. Take care. Everybody, be safe. Thank you all.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.